Well, hello, my friends. It's when we feel like at o'clock, and I got like such a cool thing for you today, man. We've been doing a lot of videos with Ranj from Capper's Comparison, but this is a dude I've been following. I've been reading his stuff for a long time. He's a beat writer for the Philadelphia Flyers and a fantastic one at that. I've been promoting him a lot in my videos, and we get to have him here today. So we hadn't did the Philadelphia Flyers yet, coincidentally, and I thought I'd throw it out there and see if Mr. Baskow would be willing to help us out to learn a little more about the Philadelphia Flyers, and he said yes. I was very excited about it.
Oh,
Jamey,
darn, you're the man. You're the man, and honestly, like, got a great viewership here, and I appreciate you thinking of me and taking the time out of your day to want to listen to me. And same thing goes to your fans, man. I appreciate it very much. I'm honored, actually.
oh wow, that's great for you to say, my friend. But so, anyways, like I'm not usually nervous, but I'm a tad nervous here. Let's. This is your team, man. I usually do things a certain way, but I really just would like for you to be able to express what you think is going great in Philadelphia. Maybe give a really good insight. Like, I'll bring up one thing. I was commenting on Twitter with you, which we go back and forth sometimes on some stuff, and I mentioned that I thought maybe they would let Jacob Voracek go to the expansion team, and you said, "Oh no, I don't think so at all." You were very, very polite about it, like usual, which is one of the things I just love about you. And I, as soon as you said that, I was like, "Well, let me check out, because if Jamey says no, I better go check out why." And then I looked at his numbers, and he's making 8.2, and I didn't even realize he's only 30 years old. And this is a guy who's played. Sorry.
Right. No, I
Yeah,
understand. Yep.
he's only 30 years old. He's only signed till he's 35, and he's consistently been putting up 60 to 65 points a game. I don't know. I follow every team. I watch a lot of hockey and pay attention to stats, and for some reason, this went right over my head. What do you think is there seems to be a little bit of a bias towards Jacob. What's on your heart about that, about him?
To be honest, I get very upset when people, like Flyers fans, for instance, and it's not a lot of them, it's some of them that say, "Oh, we should just trade Voracek, get him out of there. That'll free up a lot of cap space." Yeah, that's all good and said and done, but the guy plays his butt off. I mean, honestly, this year was one of his best years in terms of a two-way game. But so when you look at it, okay, let's get rid of Jake Voracek to free up the 8.2 to 8.5 million that he's currently making. So that's the misconception right there, is his contract. That's the only misconception, because one person, a few months ago said, "Well, Jake doesn't produce." And I said, "What do you mean he doesn't produce? He's on pace for his fourth straight 60-plus point season. How is that not producing?" And he was like, "Well, look at the road trip," and he was referring to the December post-Christmas road trip. And I said, "I don't understand. He had 6 points in 5 games played. He had 2 goals and 4 assists." He said, "Well, no. Not production, I mean goals." So it's whatever fits the narrative of certain people. When you tell them that he produces and you put facts in front of him stating that he produces, now it switches to goals. Well, he's never been a goal scorer. Jake Voracek is a playmaker. He's an effective playmaker. He's a very good playmaker. Any player that is paired with Jake Voracek succeeds. That is what you look at Giroux. Did he not succeed with Voracek? You look at Coots. You got the G, Coots, and Voracek line. Yeah, AV wanted to ramp them and put them together, but AV wanted 4 solid lines too. So he's got to split them up, at times, put them back together at times, split them up at times, put them back together, because they're so productive. That pairing, that trio right there is so productive. Why? Because you have a playmaker in Giroux, a finisher in Coots, and you got a playmaker in Voracek, and Giroux can finish too. So Voracek succeeds. The misconception is his contract, and I just don't understand it. He should be protected. And why should he be protected in the upcoming expansion draft? I'm not saying you, but we have to look at it in different blocks. Unprotect Jake, he gets snagged. So looking at the Flyers roster as is right now, because this is as is, This isn't the off season here to where, Chuck Fletcher has the ability to say, okay, I'm going to plug in this player. I'm going to plug in that. We're not there yet. So looking at this roster as is, who would take Jake Voracek's production? The only player that I see at this particular time is hurt, and that would be Nolan Patrick. He would be the only player that I could come and find that could overtake his production. Konechny's already there, so Konechny can't be included. Coots is already there. Giroux's already there. So we can't, say those particular players. The only other player that comes to mind would be Joel Farabee, in my opinion, anyway, would be Joel Farabee. Kevin Hayes could come close to 60, maybe. Would he do it for, the length of time that Jake Voracek has? I'm not confident in that to say that he could go 4 straight years at 60 plus points because he hasn't done it yet, whereas Jake has already done it. So it is unfair to put so much pressure on a young player like Joel Farabee to come in and say, okay, we trade Jake. Now we got the 60 plus points right here to replace his production. That's unfair for a second year player. Joel Farabee has played well. He's played solid hockey. He's a good player. He's going to be a very good player. He's going to be top 6, no doubt, in my opinion, if not top line. He has top line potential. Will he get there? I don't know. That's remains to be seen. He's definitely a top 6 candidate, though, for sure, player, that is. But who would take Jake's production? I don't see it. I really don't see it on the Flyers roster at this particular time. Jake is too valuable. He's valuable in the locker room. When he talks, those players, they look around. Where's he talking from? That's how it goes. Like when he commands presence. He commands the media's presence. When he talks, people want to listen. He's giddy. He's funny. He's a great guy to talk to. He's a very down-to-earth guy. He told me in an interview, I've interviewed him 3 times this year, and we talk off the record all the time. But in three interviews, the first one he gave me was the best. He said, I told him, I said, this is when he was, putting up some really good numbers in December. And he was like, you know what? You suck. He's like, I've been putting up good numbers. I was like, yeah, but what happened in the beginning of the year? And he was like, to be honest, he was like, for the first 15 to 20 games, I was very sluggish. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say it was because of the new coach. He didn't say because it's a new coaching staff, new style of play. He just didn't make any excuses. He just said he was sluggish. What more can you want from a player? He's honest with you. He gave you what you wanted. He knew he didn't play, but that's the person that Jake is. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't point the fingers at this player. He doesn't. And honestly, deep down inside, he loves the fans of Philadelphia. He likes to play games, and he plays games with me too. He blocked me parts, on Twitter for a little bit there, So but he likes to play games, and but he's a very good player, and honestly, he probably would have killed 70 plus points this year. Maybe even close to 80 with the way he was producing towards the tail, before the coronavirus hit. There were still 16 games left to play. I think he was sitting at 56, somewhere around there, 60 points, 59 points, somewhere around there or something like that. But he's a good player who can produce. And the Flyers have to be very careful with letting a glue piece in the locker room like that go, because once you start to get rid of the glue pieces in the locker room, the wheels on the bus start to fall off there, because you're looking down the line. Can the Flyers re-sign Coots? Will Coots re-sign with the Flyers? Don't know, right? Now, I believe he will, but I'm just saying, it's you don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. Will Giroux, re-sign with Philly, in the coming years, when his contract is over? So Chuck Fletcher has to be very careful to just say, okay, yeah, I'm going to let Voracek go. You let Voracek go, Giroux walks. You let Voracek go, Coots might walk. So he's got that fine line there, that he's got to please these other other players who, may want to, finish their careers out as Flyers.
You bring up some amazing points there. And what I love about what you're saying there is a lot of people don't understand there's reasons why GMs keep players that are even outside of those players in particular. Like, for instance, how teams treat their veterans determines what free agents they can bring in if they ever need it, because that gets around the league, right? Voracek has been there for a long time. Everybody loves him, and then all of a sudden you just kind of throw him aside. If I'm a player and I'm like thinking about signing with maybe they can't get Hayes if they treat Voracek like that.
Yeah,
Maybe Hayes goes, oh, do I want to go here? Like, I don't know. How are they going to treat me? Like,
yeah.
one of the best teams at that was the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh yeah,
You can say what they want about some of the guys they kept, and they
yeah,
say, well, why did they do that? Well, while they're building the team, they took care of their veterans. So
yep,
when they need to bring veterans in, guys can
yep.
say, look how well he treated those guys, so we can come in. That's something very important, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why they were able to snag a Kevin Hayes. And imagine if Chuck Fletcher did not snag Kevin Hayes, where would the Flyers be right now? Honestly, you're probably looking at Scott Lawton as a second line center, at the very least, possibly with the unfortunate injury to Nolan Patrick, So, and I pray for Nolan every night, and I hope he recovers, and I know he will. He's a very good player. He will be a good player in the NHL for years to come. But that was a very good signing by Chuck Fletcher, and that's one of the reasons why he was brought in here, and that's one of the reasons why he elected to sign here was because just what you said, just because of how well the Flyers, treat their veterans and care for their veterans. They don't just say, okay, you're off, I'm getting rid of you, let's go, goodbye, or something of that nature. You're not producing anymore, so there's glue pieces in that locker room that, ordinarily fans, it's hard to understand because, and I understand where they're coming from because they don't have the access to the locker rooms like that to understand how valuable pieces are to the puzzle in that locker room because they don't have that, they're not in there on a daily basis. So I understand where they're coming from. So from their standpoint, they're only seeing a production standpoint to them. So if they're not producing, so there's a trickle down effect there. But uh, Chuck Fletcher should protect, Jake Voracek, and Kevin Hayes has played well, and they're getting the most from TK. And I believe that Voracek has aided, TK's level. He's taken him to another level. Although TK is very, talented and stuff, you need those veterans to help push these younger players. And for instance, Joel Farabee went under Jake's wings, took him and look where, Joel Farabee is now. So they have a lot of younger players. You want to sprinkle them with some veterans because if you don't have those veterans, who's going to help direct these younger players and make them push them to become better players or take pressure off of them to play the game that they know how to play. And that's what I mean in terms of like, if they were to unprotect, Jake Voracek and he gets snagged, now you're asking a third year player, Joel Farabee, to really upstep his production. You're talking about, replacing 70 to 70, 80 points there. That's a lot for even a third year player. I was saying second year because if they were to trade Jake Voracek, this offseason, Joel Farabee would be a second year player. Now let's go back to the expansion draft. Then he's a third year player at that point. That's a lot. That's expecting a lot of younger player. So you want to keep those type of veterans that know how to play the game, produce, and play AV style. That's the thing right there. Is AV. AV is the key. If you could play under Coach AV, who's a hell of a guy who demands the most out of his players, you're doing something well.
I was just going to bring up that before we got into the defense a little bit, but when they signed AV, I was like, what a freaking move that was. So far, actually, I could say Chuck Fletcher, I don't think has made one real mistake in his lineup.
No.
And hiring AV, like I just mentioned, I love AV. I just love him. And you must love him watching him do what he does. Yeah, you would have to agree, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not only because of the way the team has performed, I love him because he has a personality. And that was missing for a long period of time, since, Peter Laviolette left. Craig Berube had a little bit of a personality, so he was a little better. And then Dave Hackstall at times had personality. He was very inconsistent in terms of his personality and expressing. And I think that's because he was a younger coach, so he was more, he was inexperienced, so he was just trying to learn. It's not a knock on Dave Hackstall at all. I just think that AV is an experienced coach, came in and he was in his comfort zone. Chuck Fletcher gave him the keys to the arena, gave him keys to everything, gave him keys to the ship. And this is pretty much AV's team. Although Fletcher, goes and attribute, gets the players that AB would, hopefully like if he can. But pretty much this is AB's team, and he has a personality, so it's really good to see. Cracking jokes, martinis, and stuff. It's a different era of Flyers hockey.
He's a good guy. You know what I liked about him was when he took over for Tortorella. People
Oh, yeah.
talked him about Tortorella for him, and he said,
Yeah.
Tortorella, I've learned so much from that guy, and I've never even worked with him. What he did for this team, he celebrated Tortorella.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of coaches wouldn't do that sort of thing.
It's funny you say that, because the fans of Vancouver, for instance, loved AV.
Yeah.
Like when they signed AV, like the Vancouver fans were like, okay, you were getting a good one. And then some Ranger fans were like, you'll see. And you'll see, he'll just play the veterans. Well, honestly, the Flyers can't really play the veterans because the whole team is young. So, honestly, the Flyers at this particular time really don't have any veterans, with the exception for Kevin Hayes, Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier, and Scott Lawton, of that nature. The rest of the team is all youth. So, even if he wanted to play the vet, he couldn't. I mean, you got a netminder back there who. That's one of the reasons why AV came here, and that was mentioned in his press conference when he was first hired. He said they have a good young goaltender back there, a very good young goaltender back there for years to come. That's exactly what he said in his press conference. Yeah. And damn sure if he's right, if he wasn't right. The guy, Carter Hart, is phenomenal. And that's the thing. You're looking at AV. Everywhere AV went, he had a goaltender. Look, he had a young Roberto Luongo. He had a Henrik Lundqvist, a young Henrik Lundqvist, and now he has a young Carter Hart. In Montreal, you could even make a case for Thibault, Jocelyn Thibault, for that. I mean, he gave him a few good years, in Montreal and stuff. I'm not saying he's not on their level. He's not on the goaltenders I just mentioned level, but I'm just saying, but it just seems that he knows the goaltending position pretty well. So, and if he were to play the vets, why isn't he playing Brian Elliott?
Yeah, well, look at how much better Brian Elliott played this year.
Oh, yes. No, I'm just saying, that was one of his criticisms when he was first hired. He doesn't play the youth.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
He started Carter Hart first game.
Carter Hart's incredible. Yeah.
No, exactly. He got shellacked in Switzerland. And he's like, there is no goaltending controversy. He is my goaltender. Boom. What's he go? Puts a hell of a game in Prague. So, but that's who Carter Hart is. He's a very good young netminder. And if he was to go, oh, okay, I don't trust Carter Hart, I'm going to play Brian Elliott. He didn't do that. So, that whole narrative from some Ranger fans went out the window. And I, you try talking to people, nicely, and that's what I do, because I don't argue or whatever, because it's not worth it.
Ranger fans are a little tough.
Yeah, they are but they're passionate, though. I do give them that. They're very passionate about their team. They know that team in and out. That's for sure. You want fans with passion. New York fans are that. That is for sure. I'll never hold that against them. But I think they were incorrect in this case in terms of AV playing the vets over the youth. But
I've had the same argument with them. And I said, I don't really argue like you do, but I will talk a little bit. Once it reaches argument level, it's time to move on. But
it's like, oh, okay, I gotta go take the dog out.
I think AV is fantastic. I thought he did a wonderful job with the Rangers. I thought he did a fantastic job in Vancouver, and it was a great pickup. I did want to talk a little bit about the defense and where you think the Philadelphia Flyers may be trying to improve themselves the most here after in the off season or something of that nature. Maybe the signings they may go with. We've got Justin Braun. Do you think they'll bring him back, or Robert Hagg, Philip Myers? Where do you think they're going to go with all that?
They will re-sign Robert Hagg for sure. That is no question. He has played very well this year. Even myself, I was hard on him. Last year, I will admit that. I will firmly admit that. I did not think that he would even be as good as he is this particular year. I did not see this one coming. So I am thank God I'm wrong on that, because he has been really good. Now on the defensive side of puck, two things are going to happen. Either they're going to trade Shane Gostisbehere at the draft or in the offseason. And if they do, then they will try to re-sign Justin Braun. If they do not move on from Ghost at the draft or at some point in the offseason, then Justin Braun is gone. And the reason is because he sits at 3.8 million right now. The Flyers are against the cap like most teams in the NHL. The cap may be frozen, not frozen, but stay in place at 81.5 million. If that is the case, the Flyers only have close to $2 million. And then you got to think of the long-term injuries coming off, like Nolan Patrick, possibly, Oscar Lindblom, in that realm, coming off at some point. So you're factoring in the Flyers are really only left with $200,000 in cap space, in this particular offseason. So how do you get out of this cap trouble? You have to let a player, unfortunately, like Justin Braun walk, who's going to command a raise. Justin Braun is only 32 years old. So, like, you're thinking he's making $3.8 million. I think he's played a hand to where a desperate team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, who's desperate for defense. The Montreal Canadiens might be a little desperate for defense. There's some other teams in the NHL that are desperate for defense that are going to overpay for a player like Justin Braun because they can. Now Toronto can. And how can Toronto do it? Because they have weapons. They have offensive weapons that they could unload that'll free up the cap space to fit Justin Braun's, cap space in. Justin Braun is very good in the locker room. He's a middle pairing D-man. That's what he is. For $3.8 million, he was a steal. For $4.5 million as a middle pairing D-man, he's a steal. Trust me, this guy he's got a spark. He's funny. He's giddy in that locker room. He's a pretty darn good player, but the Flyers are unfortunately dealt a hand where they got Sam Morin coming back next year too. So coming back from ACL injury, who Chuck Fletcher said that he would be healthy by the time training camp began. So that's what Chuck Fletcher said about a month ago. So if that's the case, you got Sam Morin coming back. Now you got another logjam. Plus you got Mark Friedman, who's a righty, who's drafted in the Hextall area, knocking on the door, who deserves a spot too. So, they are afforded wiggle room to let some of these players go. Felipe Myers is instilled. I think the defense will look like Krovy Niski. You got Sanheim Myers, and you got a Haig, and then you got question mark. Will it be Ghost? Will it be Braun? Will it be Mark Friedman? Will it be Sam Morin? Or do the Flyers move on from Sam Morin somehow? So, they got some questions at D, but I think Justin Braun is gone, in my opinion, because I just, if the season does not reconvene, Shane Gothard's fair contract, that might be a little tough, to find, a team. I know Montreal has always been linked to Shane Gothard's fair. It's easy to say trade Ghost. Will there be any takers for him? I don't know, because, this is a different salary cap era. Whereas at Justin Braun, teams know exactly the player that they're getting in Justin Braun. He was very consistent this year. So when you're looking at it, would I take Justin Braun, or am I going to take a Shane Gothisbehere? Am I going to take a Ghost who I'm going to have to pay more for because Chuck Fletcher is going to want more for him? Or can I just go out and just get the same contract for Justin Braun, sign him to a 2-year, $4.5-9 million deal? I think Justin Braun would jump at that.
Yeah, Ghost, confidence issues or what have you. I'm not sure what's going on there. I just
don't think he's healthy. I, in my opinion, I really don't. I don't think he was healthy, and I don't think he wanted to admit it. And that was inclined with him coming back. I mean, it's easy for us to say, but like if your job is on the line and your job's on the line, are you going to fight every tooth and nail for your job, even if you're hurt? Damn right. If my boss called me today and said that I could possibly be fired tomorrow, I'm going to do everything in my power to unfire myself. So that was that at the trade deadline, and that's why he tried to come back. I just think that he had a nagging injury that just didn't go away, in my opinion, and now he's finally healthy.
Well, if that's the case, then it's probably not a good idea to sell low when it's just an injury issue, right, depending on what the severity of it is. So that puts a lot of light on that. Yeah. Future-wise, what do you figure? Do you think they're going to add? They'll be looking to add, or are they going to see what happens in the playoffs first? Or
after you figure in you're trading a Justin Braun, and you can move on from some other pieces here. I think that the Flyers would be inclined to stay pat. In my opinion, anyway. Let's see what happens, but I think that they're better suited to just stay pat. And the reason is because I don't know where the salary cap is at. You got Justin Braun, so that frees up 3.8. They could possibly have like 9.2, close to $10 million worth of cap space with some other UFAs knocking off. I wouldn't see a big splash if that's what people were asking. I would see some minor splashes, maybe signing a Derek Grant. He has some RFAs to clean up too, and of course, some RFAs that aren't going to cost money and stuff, like they were, like an Oscar Lindblom, I hate to say it, or a Nolan Patrick, they may not cost, like they once were because given their injuries, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, Nicholas Kubel. I really like him, actually.
Hey, he's going to deserve a raise there, maybe a half a mil to a mil.
All right, man. That's our future. Well, you also have a podcast going on, my friend.
Yep, getting gritty with it. We got Jim Jackson coming on this Thursday. It should be a good one. And I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day, Steve, to spend some time with me. Thank God to your fans. Love you all. Stay safe.
Awesome, dude. Check out his podcast. I was so happy to have you. Thank you for coming, my friend. We'll talk some Philly some other time, I'm sure. Have a great day, everyone. Lots of love to you.